Together with Zurich Life, The Street is hosting a webinar on Monday, October 22nd at 6 p.m. Eastern, focused on cybersecurity and the complex issues surrounding the subject. I'm with James Rogers, Senior Tech Editor for The Street, and let's focus on what counts here. Let's kick it off with the individuals. What are issues that they look for when it comes to cybersecurity?
Well, you know, this is an issue that just won't go away. Like, I always feel that, oh, we're going to see the end of cybersecurity. We're finally going to get on top of it, but we're not. You know, we've seen recently all these distributed denial of service attacks against major US financial institutions. It basically seems that the big challenge for individuals is staying ahead of the game. Basically, the bad guys are getting more and more sophisticated. But a key thing for people dealing with this is that the cost of actually dealing with cybercrime is rising. You know, there was recently research from HP and the Ponemon Institute which said that the cost is up 40% since 2010. So basically, you know, this is the time for them to maybe looking at new technologies and new ways of basically dealing with this problem.
And speaking of costs, because clearly institutions are probably the most targeted, which gets passed on to the consumer, what are the issues surrounding the institutional space?
Well, again, you know, I think a lot of this gets back to kind of both technology issues and also issues about how they deal with this within their organizations. Like, a lot of the people I speak to, and this has basically been the case for like the last 5 or 6 years, they say that there's still a real issue around awareness of cybersecurity, both in boardrooms and throughout organizations. Like, what are policies like? What are procedures like? And then the big question is, like, are they buying the right gear to actually deal with this?
And speaking of the biggest institution, the government, how is it impacted?
Well, I mean, for the government, it's a slightly different deal. Obviously, on one hand, like, they're getting targeted just like everyone else is, but they also have to deal with broader policy issues. Like, you know, we saw Defense Secretary Leon Panetta recently warn of a digital Pearl Harbor, basically outlining a world where a lot of critical US infrastructure could get attacked. You know, we saw the Stuxnet worm some time ago, which goes after basically power plants and that type of thing. And there's a growing awareness and a growing fear that basically US sort of power plants, electricity grid could all be targeted by a cyber attack, and that's something that the government, along with industry, needs to deal with.
And what is the industry looking at in terms of solutions, and what stocks are we looking at to provide them?
Well, you know, I speak to a lot of these guys within Silicon Valley about like hot technologies. You know, we're hearing about a lot about a technology called Security Information and Event Manager, SIEM. This basically lets companies like manage the whole cybersecurity issue, like, you know, which parts of the business are vulnerable, you know, how do they deal with threats when they emerge. So that's one thing that's sold by the likes of, say, like, I don't know, HP, Symantec, various others. Also, you know, the issues around cloud security. If you're a small business, maybe, you might want to send off some of your security processes into the cloud. Again, like, Symantec has been doing a lot of work with that. And then obviously there's always a lot of stuff going on around hardware. You know, technologies like unified threat management sold by the likes of Fortinet, which basically boil a lot of different security technologies into one device. So there's a lot of things out there that people could be doing at the moment.
And what can the consumer do, just to wrap up, to protect themselves as the industry hashes out what the next step is going to be?
Well, a lot of it is the stuff that we hear about every day. You know, to protect your passwords, be careful with your information, you know, be aware of encryption, that type of thing. Basically, it's being cautious and basically being constantly aware that there are people out there who want to steal your stuff.
Okay, for more, don't forget, sign on with us October 22nd, 6 p.m. Eastern.